Hey guys, my name is Matimio, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming or Battlefield 3 related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way, if you would like to submit your own question that could be featured in a future episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below or by sending me a YouTube message. So the first question for today, since a lot of you wanted to get my opinion on this, is that DICE has recently released a very short teaser trailer for Battlefield 4 prior to their upcoming reveal, including one that appears to be a ship propeller. Do you think this is a confirmation of naval combat in Battlefield 4? If so, how do you hope DICE implements naval combat in the game? So this little teaser trailer has caused a lot of speculation, and a lot of people are trying to figure out what does this mean, where is this going to lead, and really, for me personally, this doesn't confirm that it's going to be in the multiplayer. Marketing, usually what they like to do, and this is for Battlefield 3 and pretty much any game out there, is that they show teaser trailers usually for the single player. If you remember back for Battlefield 3, they showed us all of these really cool clips that only involved the single player, and the multiplayer aspects of things kind of came later. And so what I'm kind of thinking is that since this is very early in the marketing development, this is the first time we've really started to see anything for Battlefield 4, I have a feeling that what this really means is that there's going to be some sort of naval combat or something that involves a ship or a submarine in the single player. So maybe you have a mission where you need to infiltrate onto a boat and take out a target or something like that. It doesn't really confirm that it will be for the multiplayer. But if they do go down that route, I'm not exactly sure how I would want them to do it. Because, I mean, it's cool in concept to have a map that's pretty much all water, maybe a couple of islands scattered around, which are your capture points. But then you run into the problem, well, does that mean that everyone needs to be on a boat, or that everyone needs to be in some sort of vehicle to be effective on that map? And I know some people don't, they flat out do not like to play in vehicle combat. And if you even if you play on something like tank superiority, you still have people running around as infantry units, and that game mode in particular really isn't all that successful. So my kind of worry is that while initially these maps might be a lot of fun, they might be very fresh and new because we haven't had something like this in Battlefield for a while, I think that the excitement would diminish after a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and then those maps might not be played very often, or only the dedicated few will continue to play those heavily vehicle-centered maps. But I'd like to know what you guys think. Do you want to have naval combat for the multiplayer in Battlefield 4? And if so, how would you kind of go about it? Let us all know down below. So the next question for today comes in from Dustin, who asked, "Hey Matimio, what are your thoughts on the lack of gun balancing in the endgame patch? Was there any weapon that you would have liked to have seen a slight nerf or buff to? Also, do you think that the reason behind there being such a lack of changes to weapons is that DICE does not want to have to put out another patch in case one of their changes had a negative repercussion?" So honestly, I'm pretty content with the gun balance in the game, and I didn't really think that there needed to be more for the endgame DLC. DICE has done a reasonably good job at balancing things out, and I know that some people will say that, the M16A3, the M416 are the overpowered weapons, everyone uses them, but I don't think that they're like crazy overpowered by any means, and while yeah, you will have a slight advantage when you use them, it doesn't mean that you can't do well with pretty much every other weapon in the game. I have not used the M16A3 or the M416 in months. I just don't touch it anymore. People complained about it way too often. I hardly ever used it to begin with, but I thought, I'm not going to use these weapons because I know people don't like to see them, and as you guys know, I do well in Battlefield. I keep producing gameplay where I'm getting on the top of the scoreboards with random weapons that a lot of people usually don't touch, and it's just simply because the weapon balance in this game is really good. You can still do well with all of these other weapons, you just kind of have to use them correctly. You have to use them in the right situation, and while they're not kind of the all situation or all scenario guns like the M16 is, you can get around that, and you can kind of play around it and still do very well with it. So like I said, you can do more gun balancing, and you can try to make it that perfect game where everything is completely balanced. But I have a feeling that if you tried to do that and you really wanted everything to be just flawless with every single weapon weapon doesn't feel overpowered, then the game would just evolve into a couple of weapons that do slightly different things. One's good for long range, one's good for medium range, and one's good for short range, and then that's that. And I don't think that's what people want in a video game or for a first-person shooter. I know that there are very competitive games like Counter-Strike where that's more the case, but I think that for something like Battlefield and something that has a much more wide appeal, people want customization. They want different weapons that have different options and just a lot of different ways for you to play the game. And so like I said, I'm just happy with what the gun balance is for Battlefield 3. So the final question for today comes in from HD Instrumental, who asks, "Hey Matimio, what do you think about the attack helicopters in Battlefield 4 doing barrel rolls and other acrobatic stuff that jets in Battlefield 3 can do, but helicopters cannot?" Yeah, that would be great. I know that in Battlefield 2 you could do this kind of stuff, and it made it a lot harder to hit an enemy vehicle or an enemy helicopter with like a TV missile if they were doing some of these crazy stunts. And in Battlefield 3, I know that they were trying to balance it out and they didn't want the helicopters to be this very maneuverable death machine that could get out of every situation. So that's probably why that they kind of toned down the acrobats and the precision, or just to be able to do, you know, flips and stuff like that, because they didn't want it to be overpowered. But, you know, I don't think that if they did allow you to do this, it would sway it too much into their favor. I think what it would really come down to is that it would give the pilots more options to, if they're a skilled pilot, they can get out of those tight situations that a normal pilot couldn't. And I would like that in the next game. And not only that, but it would just be awesome to do barrel rolls all over the maps and to dodge rockets with it. It would be awesome. So yeah, in Battlefield 4, I think that barrel rolls and more acrobatics for the helicopter is a great idea. But that is about it for today's Sunday Mailbox. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have a question that you would like to ask for a future episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below or by sending me a YouTube message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.